Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1298.
If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Greene is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, automotive enthusiasts. I'm revved up and so excited to introduce today's very special guest, calling in from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada, the great Rob Howden. Hey, Rob, are you buckled up and ready for a fun ride?
Yeah, ready to grab some gears with you, Mark.
There we go. Rob Howden is the voice of the road to Indy, and he works on the IndyCar Radio Network broadcast team. For the last 25 years, Rob has dedicated his life to the coverage of kart racing and open-wheel Formula car racing in North America as the editor-in-chief and publisher of past publications such as Shifter Kart, Illustrated, and Formula Car Magazine, and most currently, the industry-leading website ekartingnews.com. He's been the trackside play-by-play on the PA for the primary karting series and events across the continent, and he is considered, I should say, the primary announcer in the North American karting community. Rob will call 26 different racing events this year. Oh my gosh. Which will take him on to all four corners of the country. And I want to shout out to Chris Pantani of Cooper Tires for introducing me to Rob. I'm hoping to learn a little bit from you today, sir. So, Rob, I've told our listeners a little bit about you. Would you take a brief moment, share a little more about your career and a very obvious passion for racing?
Yeah, you know what? I've got the passion from my dad. He was a stock car racer. And like so many, I was there the week before I was born inside my mom. And then I was born and then I was back at the racetrack, the stock car track, the next Saturday night. So for me, when I was in my early 20s, I ended up getting a job coming out of college working for a racing newspaper. Back in 1993, I was a cub reporter making 4 cents a word, covering everything from stock cars to jet ski racing, grass drag, snowmobiles, road racing, whatever it may be. I got into karting. They sent me to a couple of kart races, and I really enjoyed it. I kind of focused on that, did a lot of work for them in karting. Yeah. And then eventually, I started my own magazine. I actually started the magazine called Shifter Kart, you had mentioned. I had about $300 in the bank, and a bunch of people in the industry got behind me, and that was 1998. Fast forward 20 years later, and I've been doing 20 races a year, covering karting. From karting, I kind of followed the kids up through the ranks to cars and got a chance to announce some car races. That led to Formula Car Magazine as well, as the industry wanted their own magazine. So we built that for all the ladder system series. Yeah. And essentially, it's been 20 years of just going from race to race and enjoying and watching young drivers develop all the way from karting through now with my work with the IndyCar Radio Network to the NTT IndyCar Series. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just incredible what you've pulled off and what you've done. I shouldn't say pulled off because it's been an incredible amount of work. And the fact that you're on the road traveling, in our pre-show chat, you were talking to me about how often you were gone on the weekends. What was that number?
27 this year in total. And it's Thursday to Monday, right? You fly out Thursday, right? Fly home on Monday. I have one run of 7 straight weekends this year, a couple of 3 weeks off runs, which doesn't usually happen. By off, I mean I'm just not at the racetrack. I'm still working at home.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the work never stops back at the desk either. Wow. Well, very impressive. Well, as we continue on your journey, I always like to start with a success quote or a mantra. This is some kind of saying that's been important to you and instrumental in forming your life and your success. It's a nice way to get the inspirational tire smoking here on Cars Yeah. So, Rob, grab the wheel.
Mark, I think that when it comes to somebody in our line of work, and by that I mean kind of media / publishing, that kind of thing, it is so much work. When I had the magazine, I was a small shop. We had 2 people, one in accounting, me as kind of the publisher. I started even laying the magazine out myself, and there was always an all-nighter to get it done. Oh yeah. So it's one of those things where one of the mantras I always have is, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Henry Ford.
And that's what I have to be, because I find myself in my office at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night on a regular basis. My employee who works for me works 19 to 20 weekends a year, but he's a family man, so he works 8 to 4. Yeah. I don't have any kids. My girlfriend's in the industry as well. I work all night sometimes. And but I love it so much that it's not a struggle for me. You know what I mean? Again, if you have a weekend off from the racetrack, inevitably I'm trying to find NASCAR or MotoGP or something on TV because there's a void if I don't have it. So I love it so much, it just doesn't feel like work.
Well, you found the secret sauce to life, and that's what Cars Yeah is all about, inspiring automotive enthusiasts. I always say it's people who've wrapped their passion for cars into their lives and figured out a way to make a living at it, big or small or whatever it is. But the fact is, you get to have fun with what you're doing. And I think for a lot of folks that go to jobs every day that are just quote unquote jobs, they don't even get it. You know, they live for the evenings and the weekends. And I've always said, well, if you could do what you're doing in the evenings and weekends and get paid all day long, wouldn't you do that? And yeah, how do I do that? Well, you got to figure it out. But if you're into cars, you can listen to people like Rob and figure that out for yourself. Well, let's talk about a story that instigated your personal passion for cars and racing. Is there a pivotal moment in your life when you knew that you were a car guy?
I guess I would have to go back. You know, I can't go back to the day when I was born, as I said, but it was just, I spent so many nights at, it's called Flamborough Speedway. It's a 3rd mile stock car track, just about, I think, an hour outside of Toronto, you know, closer to Niagara Falls. You know, my dad raced there for 20 something years. He was the track champion a couple of times. It was that visceral feeling. You know, there's other things you can do as a kid, whether you're playing outside football, baseball. I'm Canadian, so I was a goalie. I played hockey.
Hockey, yeah.
But as you know, when it comes to cars and my form racing, it's not just it's the sights, the sounds, the smells. I still find myself back there now. Every once in a while, I go help my buddy Gary Colling, who's the announcer at Flamborough. I still go there once or twice to maybe help him out on the mic. But when I get there, it's the smell of the cars, the sound of the engines. And I always say, I find this interesting because, of course, as a kid, I'd be with my grandparents. You know, my dad was racing. I was with my grandparents in the grandstands, and I'd fall asleep before the end of the night. But my dad's race was last. He was a super late model driver. So it's always a feature race. I would wake up for it. But I still say this now when I go to the track. When they come out of turn 4 and start throttling up to get the green, my heart rate goes down. It's like down. I get this sense of calm when they come out of the corner because it's just that sense, that sound. And it's still the same way at a kart race or when I'm at the Indy 500 or whatever it is. I just get so calm and relaxed, like I know it. That's where I'm supposed to be. I love it.
You know, this is interesting to me because I've interviewed a lot of race car drivers, and they've said the same thing, that leading up to the race, getting in the car, doing a few warm-up laps right before the green, everything is so tense, and then all of a sudden it kind of lets go, and they start to build into that groove, into that working momentum. Do you think there's some relationship going on here?
I think so. You know, when it comes to like racing itself, I think my heart rate thing is just because of where I am, and it's just this awesome thing to be back. Yeah. And the race has started, and maybe it was. Maybe my dad was out there, and I was stressed a little bit, but once we got going, I was okay. But it's the same thing when I'm spooling up for when we're getting ready to go for an IndyCar broadcast on IndyCar radio, or when I'm doing the road to Indy. Right? It's the minute the mic goes on, the show's on, I'm into my groove, and away we go. You know, right or wrong, slip up or no slip up. You know, you step on your words a couple of times because you're excited. You're part of the race, and once the race starts, you're in it. You know, there's no more stress. You're in it and going, I think.
Well, I admire all you guys that call races because it's like, how are these guys doing this? It's like calling football games and so forth. How do they? I know there's things they have support and so forth, but you guys amaze me how you do this. It's really, really spectacular. Well, let's talk about a big challenge or a big failure that you faced along the way in your life or your career. I'd love for you to share one with us. More importantly than the actual issue that kind of caused you to fall back on your heels, perhaps, is what you learned from it and how you move forward out of that situation. So take us through one of those times that was kind of tough.
Well, you know, I think starting the magazine in 1998 wasn't tough. That was the exciting part, right? I dug in and had the support of the industry. I was announcing races. I was living my dream, right? I was starting this magazine, and it was a ton of work. But it was one of those things where I think a lot of people in the industry, in the automotive industry, have to deal with this. And that's the evolution and the ebbs and flows of how to deliver the right product to their customers at the right time. Mm-hmm. In the world of journalism, it's all about, you know, where are your customers? You know, where are they taking in your content, right? Where do they want the content? Where are they taking it? Where are they ingesting it? It was magazines. Back in 1998 and through the 2000s, everybody loved magazines. And then the web came. Mm-hmm. And I played around a bit trying to have a website that worked with it, but it was early on, super early on. I actually ended up buying a website called ekartingnews.com. They were my competition at one point. And so I had both the magazine and the website, and I provided different things. You know, I pulled some of the race report stuff out of the magazine and brought it to the website. The magazine became a little more profile oriented. But my I guess the struggle was for me to come to the decision sooner or later, and it ended up being after 88 issues, was to actually shut the magazine down. It was still making some pretty good revenue. But for me, I was so spread so thin trying to do both. It was a struggle. I had to sit down. I went over it. I beat my brain. Is it the right thing to do? Because it really was my baby. The website was somebody else's. They had started it. We had brought it into our own. I had a staff that worked on it. We loved it. It was just the immediacy of giving people, news as opposed to having to wait a month or more to get the magazine. I loved it. We were really, we would do trackside coverage where we were updating, every 10 minutes what was happening. It was exciting. But, to have to put your baby down, you know what I mean? It was Shifter Card Illustrated, which eventually became Super Card Illustrated because I opened it up to more than just shifter cards. That was a tough thing for me. And I think once it was done, it was a huge relief and weight off my shoulders because it was so much work. It was a full week of 15-hour days plus one overnighter. I would be at the printer every night making sure that the recognition was right on the colors because this was back in the day, when at that point we had probably gone to digital, but it was still, I was making sure everything looked perfect while they were printing it.
Press checks. I've done thousands of those. Yeah.
And sometimes there were 2 a.m. I lived 5 miles from the printer, so I would head over every 2 hours knowing a new one was coming out because it's my thing. So to put that to bed was tough for me. That was the biggest challenge I had, to be able to do that. But I learned there that because right then I was able to put so much more emphasis and attention onto the website that it flourished even more. We pushed it to a different level. And that's kind of what I've done over the 20 years. I've tried to take things to a different level. It was the magazine, then it was the website. And now the website's still rocking, but now it's our EKN radio network. We have a 24/7 streaming audio component and social media. And I just think it allowed me to be flexible, to be able to make that decision to shut down something that I thought was so important to me and was such a big part of my life for 8 years at that point. Mm-hmm. That was the growth period for me, I think, to be able to make that move.
No doubt. Oh, yeah. I can relate to that 1,000%. Well, let's have a little bit of fun and talk about your first really special vehicle, that first vehicle that came into your life. Maybe your first car, maybe it was the first cool car you could afford to buy, and share a special memory you have about that ride.
Well, the funny thing is that, as a kid, I didn't have a lot of money to buy a car. And I don't think my parents really ever wanted me to have a car either. I think the first thing, I was supposed to do my license in a VW Rabbit diesel. Okay. No, I was supposed to do it in the 4-door Dodge Fury. I practiced in the automatic 4-door Dodge Fury. It had a fire in the dash 2 days before my license. I ended up having to go do it in the standard Rabbit. I've been driving the standard at my dad's shop since I was about 11. That's how he babysat me. Go out and drive the cars around the shop. That's what I did. So I don't really have a cool car. You know what I mean? Yeah, I bought a Honda Prelude. I think the coolest thing I ever bought was when I made a dumb mistake coming out of college, and I should have bought a vehicle, and instead I bought a Suzuki RG250 two-cycle GP bike, which we could get up in Canada, which was an awesome bike.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. So, but I had that for a couple of years, and it made no sense because I live in Canada. And
how often can you ride it?
Exactly right. April to October. So that probably wasn't the best idea. But for me, again, because I'm a racer, I look back, what's the coolest thing I bought? I had cars that were utilitarian, to be honest. I was a race car guy.
Yeah.
And it was the first cart that I bought. It was a 1994 MXK Mirage, and it was my entry into racing. And I was actually 27 years old. I wasn't 27 till I got a chance to race myself because I was so busy working.
Wow.
And and I ended up buying my own cart in 1995. And it was a 94. As I said, it won the championship that year before. And it was, maybe that was my kind of birthright as to, people, 16-year-old kids getting in a car and cruising in their car. For me, it was getting up at 5 a.m, driving to the kart track, actually being able to race after watching my dad for 20 years, to be able to race myself. I can still remember the first weekend and the feeling I felt being out there driving myself. It was amazing.
I'll bet. Very cool. Well, should I even bother to ask you the seller's remorse question I asked all my guests, and that is, a vehicle you've let go? I mean, do you still have that card, or is that something you had to let go?
What I would love, but I sold it because I wanted to get something else, right? It was I would love to have that back. And the funny thing is, when I started the magazine, the Shifter Card Illustrated magazine, there was a builder out of California. It was called CTS. Ray Cunningham and his wife. He built drag cars at one point, but he fell in love with karts, and so he started building shifter karts. And his TIG welding was so amazing. The way he built the cart, it was just it was a work of art. when I first started the magazine, I got him to do a trade out with me. So he got free advertising and I got a free 125 shifter.
Nice.
And because I wanted to be cool, like it was a prototype kind of thing, we didn't paint it. No paint, no gloss, no nothing. It was just the straight chromoly tubing. And the thing looked, it was, I would love to have that cart back because it's, I think, the best made cart I've ever seen in my life. It was beautiful. It was amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool that you're the first guy who wanted to have his cart back. Usually for my guess, it's cars. So a few racers that wanted to have their first race car back. But
I did, I had the Formula Car magazine as well for 6 years too. We did the Formula Car magazine, and actually I did a project car. I did a Formula V, which a lot of people used to start in Formula. Yeah. It's got the 1200cc pancake VW engine, right? The horizontal pulse. And it was a great engine, 50 something horsepower, 60 something horsepower. Didn't go fast, but it was a project car that we put together with a lot of great partners and had a carbon fiber body, which we were allowed to do. And there were so many great partners involved in that project. I'd love to have that car back as well because I'm still a big fan of Formula V racing.
Formula V is cool. Sovereign, which is the group that I race vintage cars with up here in the Pacific Northwest, had a pretty big group of Formula Vs. And when I decided I wanted to do some vintage racing, I didn't have a lot of money. And I thought that might be the way to go. I got real lucky and got my hands on a 1960 Lotus Formula Junior, an 18. That was the car I ended up running, which I thought was kind of like a fancy Formula V. It was a little faster. It wasn't very fast, but, fast enough for a new guy. I was fast enough to get hurt in. That's what I used to think. But I always liked watching the Formula V guys, just like a bunch of bumblebees going around the track, just ducking and dodging and diving in and having fun. I always look like they're having a lot of fun.
Always so many cars, right? Because there's the little horsepower. It's always these big draft packs. I went to many SCCA runoffs. I actually got a chance to be the announcer when it was on online coverage after they came out of Speed. And 50 something cars in Formula V, and always a great race to the end, no doubt.
Oh yeah, they're great. They're having fun. Well, Rob, what are you working on this year with your business and your life that has you really excited and fired up?
Well, again, I brought it up already, and it's playing around with the EKN radio network. Our EKN radio stream. We're having so much fun with it. It's such a different thing, and it's the evolution from the magazine to the website. It's like you. I'm knocking out a bunch of podcasts. We've got 25 or so done. I'm not like you. I'm not knocking out 5 a day, but
you're not a crazy person, huh?
Well, you know what? I'd love to be able to push out that much content because obviously I'm having fun with you here, and I know how much fun I have when I have guys on. I do a lot of stuff. With obviously the Road to Indy. I call myself the Road to Indy Insider, and we do a lot of podcasts, insider podcasts, and I pick star of the race. So that's the project that we're doing. We're really pushing on the social media angle. We're also having fun trackside, kind of leveraging some of the the more interesting social media opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing after every race day, we do kind of a Q&A on Facebook Live. We're going to do some Instagram Live at the race I'm going to this coming weekend in Utah, a big Supercarts USA Pro Tour race. So cool. Playing with a lot of the content delivery options we have now, I find really interesting. And really for me, there's 2 big things in my life that I look forward to every year that are massive. I've been the announcer of the Supercarts USA Super Nationals, which is the biggest karting event pretty much in the world. It's held in Las Vegas every year, 500 and something people. We're back at the Rio Hotel in the parking lot at the Rio. I've been the announcer there for 22 years. I always say that's my Christmas. We call it Super Sunday. That's all the main events on Super Sunday. And then probably right side by side is the fact that in 2014, Mark Janes, the anchor of the IndyCar Radio Network, gave me the call that I didn't expect I was going to get and invited me to be on pit lane with the network for the Indy 500. So the 100th running was my first one. This will be my 4th one coming up on Memorial Day weekend, and I'm super excited to be there. I've been kind of moving my way up pit lane. I'll be in the second group of cars on pit lane. It's just, there's been a thread on Twitter today about how crazy the Indianapolis 500 is and how people that have been there, it's kind of you get indoctrinated into the speedway, right? I cannot wait for Sunday and to get back to the track for the 500.
I don't doubt it. Sounds like a really fun time. Well, Rob, up next is the last lap. Before we put the pedal to the metal, let's say thank you to today's Cars Yeah sponsors. Hey, fellow automotive enthusiasts, I'm a huge fan of Covercraft. I've protected my vehicles with their products since 1975. That's right, all the way back to my high school days. Want to keep your vehicle's exterior and interior looking new? It's easy with a Covercraft car cover. A car cover is the best way to keep your vehicle looking great for years to come. Car covers protect your paint from fallout, birds, dust, rain, insects, and pollen. It's a fast, easy, and inexpensive way to keep your vehicle looking new. I use my Covercraft car covers every single day. Right now, you can get 10% off all Covercraft custom car covers or their ready-fit car covers. Plus, they offer you over 15 quality fabrics to choose from. Their spring sale is from April 15th through June 16th, 2019. Order direct at covercraft.com and tell them Mark at Cars Yeah sent you. Covercraft is the right choice. Learn more today at covercraft.com. That's covercraft.com. Are you looking for a way to get your products or services into the ears of thousands of automotive enthusiasts around the globe? I can help. This is Mark Greene here at Cars Yeah, and I'd be honored to be an influencer and ambassador for your brand in a unique and personal way. 5 days a week, thousands of subscribers and listeners enjoy the Cars Yeah podcast and website. Contact me today and I'll show you how at mark@carsyeah.com or connect with me through the Cars Yeah website at carsyeah.com. Hey, Mark Greene here from the Cars Yeah podcast. Did you know you can now see me on the Cars Yeah TV show? That's right. Cars Yeah is now on MAV TV. I visit some of the past Cars Yeah guests and take you along for the ride. Go to mavtv.com to learn more where you can enjoy Cars Yeah TV. MAV TV is also available on DirecTV, Fubo TV, Fios by Verizon, or you can stream it through mavtv.com online. And they said I only had a face for podcasting. All right, Rob, we are back, and I have a very introspective question for you. If you woke up tomorrow and you were a vehicle parked in the garage, not what you want to be, but how you perceive yourself, manifested as iron and steel and rubber and gasoline and oil, what would Rob be and why?
You know, I'd like to say that I was some kind of a cool car, you know, a Carrera GT or something badass. But to be honest, to be in the industry that I'm in and kind of the way I live my life, I'm probably really just an ordinary work pickup truck. Yeah. You know what I mean? I get the job done. It's 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. and you work through the weekends and honestly, probably just, in fact, I just sold my Dodge Ram 1500. I'm probably just a straight up pickup truck.
Well, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. I've had plenty of those on this show. That's what it takes.
Yeah.
You know, to get things done. I like it. Well, we are entering the last lap. This is a place you've been many times as an announcer. The white flag's out. I'm going to fire off a series of questions and ask you to give our listeners some quick blips of the throttle answers. So here we go. What's the best automotive advice you've ever received?
That probably came from the guys at Cooper Tires. Make sure you've got make sure you've got the right tire pressures and check your tread depth.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing to me how many people do not care for their tires, and everything is riding on your tires. I think that's a tagline for one of the major manufacturers.
Probably.
But it always boggles my mind, and I always check my tire pressures every month. And when I take my car in for service, my service rep always says, Mark, you're the only guy who breaks his car in and we don't have to check his tires because they're always right.
People line up to save 3, 4, 5 cents of, you know, at the gas pumps.
Yeah.
But as long as you got the right tire pressure, you're not going to waste the fuel anyways. Right?
I know. Yeah. It's really, I don't know. Education. Hopefully we've educated a few folks to be as nutty as we are, or smart, one of the two, or maybe a combination of both. Would you share one of your personal habits you believe has contributed to your many successes over the years?
One of my personal habits, you know, I think my personal habit is I don't like not to be working. I struggle not to be working. When I'm at the racetrack announcing races, and if there's a break, I want to do something. I always tell the guys, I'll do something else. At a kart track, I announce from 9 till 6. I don't stop. There's breaks at a race kart event because different series are out there. And I always say, I'm busy. Let me keep working. So I think that would probably be one of my personal habits is I just want to work all the time.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Let me ask you something real quick, because you and I do something similar. We talk a lot here, and I've got a little bit of a cold going today. Let me ask you, how do you take care of your voice? Because if you don't have a voice, you're out of work. What are some of the ways that you take care of your voice?
You know what? I will tell you this right now. I have no issues with my voice at all. It
always works.
It does, and I don't know what I've done or how it's done. I will, over a course of a weekend, potentially lower an octave sometimes if it starts to strain.
Yeah,
I do a lot of yelling. I'm a pretty excited announcer, probably maybe too much sometimes. The only weekend I have trouble on is the race I talked about, the Super Nationals, the big kart race in Las Vegas. It's very dry there.
Yeah.
I'm on for an extended period of time, usually 12 hours on one of the days because we go quite late into the evening.
Oh, my God.
Over the course of the 20 years I've been announcing, 15 more, but 20 years I've been announcing aggressively, you learn how and when to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
It's building the crescendo. You don't need to be yelling during qualifying, although you might drop a little one in when somebody qualifies on pole. But again, working on just bringing up the tempo and taking care of your voice. I have had Super Sundays where I've been in trouble for sure. But when it is, for me, it's hot water, lemon and honey.
Do you have a resource that you'd like to share with our listeners that you find appealing?
For me, if it would come to a resource, I think I'm 50 years old. And I think that one of the things that has been a strength for me is the fact that I'm still open to coaching. I've been doing this for a long time. And when I started with the guys from the IndyCar Radio Network 6 years ago, it was one of those things where I was coming into a new place. And they've been doing it for many, many years. Paul Page was there at that point when I was there. Mike King was involved when I was there. These guys have been doing it for 20 years as well. They've been doing it as long as I have, but in a different place. And there are guys that are younger than me who I consider mentors because they do such a great job and they've been with the network for a long time. And I think that's the resource. And it's mentors. It's having people who you respect enough to take the input, even though you may not like it, or just to open yourself up. Because I'm constantly asking for input. Sometimes they get mad at me that I ask too much because I don't think I should be, but I think that's it.
So if I could wave my magic wand and arrange for you to sit down and have a drink with anyone in the automotive industry, living or deceased, who would it be?
Wow. That's an unbelievably hard question.
That's a neat magic wand, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a really, really hard question. You know who it would be? Only because I've come a long way since I spent some time with them. And for me, as a journalist, I'd like to sit down and revisit a conversation with Chris Economaki.
Oh, yeah.
When the Red Bull driver search was on for Formula One, a number of pretty much all the drivers that they brought into the F1 driver search were guys I'd known from karting. Scott Speed, who eventually won and ended up going over and running for Red Bull, Colin Fleming, Matt Jaskell, Dominic Claessen's the first four drivers. Those guys, I knew them all. So when they launched the Sauber that year, I was invited along with Dutch Mandel from Auto Week and Chris Economaki to fly to Salzburg, Austria as kind of this karting, the karting representative to see these kids at the Red Bull program and be there for the Sauber F1 launch that year. Yeah. And Chris was there. And Chris was one of my, obviously I'd met Chris at an indoor TQ midget race at Niagara Falls at one point. He was obviously well-aged at that point, but I spent a lot of time with Chris at that particular event. And I was so young and so, I'd only been in it for probably 5 or 6 years. I'm not who I am now, and I was overwhelmed. And I think I missed the opportunity to glean a ton of knowledge from him just based on what it was. We talked about the sport. We talked about, we went into the Goldener Hirsch is the place, the hotel or the restaurant we went to. We had a Grand Marnier together and I got great stories about it. But you know what? To be able to talk to him again, I think
with the maturity you have now.
Yes.
The knowledge. Yeah.
Wow. The knowledge. Yeah. The ups and downs and the hurdles I've gone through as a 20-year publisher from a guy who was a publisher for much longer than that.
Yeah. That'd be pretty darn cool. How about a book? Is there a book you'd like to share with our listeners that you've enjoyed?
I don't have a ton of time to read, but when I jumped into the, getting a chance to be part of the Indy 500 broadcast with IndyCar Radio, I poured through a bunch of different books. And one of the ones that I thought, it's interesting because that's not something I would ever consider, right? The book is called The Beast by Jade Gerst. I don't know if you've read it before. It's an awesome book. It's about the 1994 Indianapolis 500, and they made a rule that gave more horsepower to pushrod engines. It was kind of a loophole in the rule. And Roger Penske hooked up with Ilmore Engineering to build a pushrod engine. And the book's amazing because they had such a little time, to get this engine built and designed. And they talk all about how they would go back and forth. They'd be they'd be flying over parts and new engines for them to test. They tested at Nazareth with Paul Tracy in the cold. I think it was snowing, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? And the temperature didn't get high enough. If you're an IndyCar fan, it's by Jade Gerst. It's called Beast, which is about this particular engine. And they ended up badging it as a Mercedes-Benz. It's an amazing story. And now that I've been in the IndyCar paddock a bit, there's so many names of people that were involved back in 1993, 94 that I now know personally. So it's an amazing book about this top secret engine that Penske was building.
Wow, I've not heard of that book. I'm going to have to get my hands onto it. Yeah.
You'll love it.
How do you spell Jay's last name?
It's GURSS.
Gurs. Okay. I'll make sure I check that up. Well, listeners, I'll make sure I put that resource, a link, and all the others Rob has shared with us today on his very own Cars Yeah show notes page. Just go to carsyeah.com, type in Rob Howden, Howden, and that page will pop right up. All right, Rob, we are up to the last question here, and it could be a bit of a doozy. Today, I'm going to buy you any cool collector car on the planet. Doesn't matter who owns it or where it is. I'm going to park it in your garage, but there's a couple rules to this little deal that make it a bit of a challenge. You can't sell it to buy a bunch of other toys with, so that little trick's off the table. You have to drive it. No garage queen, so pick something that you might be comfortable in, and it's the only cool collector car you can have in your garage. The only one's going to be parked there, so what can I buy you?
Pretty easy.
Good.
Shelby Cobra.
Oh, okay. Well,
I know
I'm not too surprised.
You probably get that a lot, but I think that would, for me, that would just be a badass car to drive.
Do you want the big engine one or the slap side?
The big engine, please.
Of course. Yeah. I kind of figured that would be where we're going to go here. So cool. Now, do you have any preferences to what color you'd like that to be?
You know what? I'll go with the blue.
Blue.
The blue with the white stripes, just iconic. Let's just go straight there. I'm all for that.
There we go. That shouldn't be too hard for me to find. Just got to get my big checkbook out.
The Ford GT is pretty badass too.
Oh gosh.
Real.
Well,
let's be real.
You saved me a few shackles here. From the Cobra to the Ford GT40, because that car's going to really get up there. But even the Cobras have gotten pretty pricey. But I think that'll be pretty easy.
What about you? Hey, what about you? Does everybody throw this back at you?
Yeah. I've been asked this question a couple times, and it depends on the day, really, for me. But I think the way I answered it the last time somebody threw it at me was, I would like to have Rob Dickinson of Singer build me a car. He builds the Porsche redesigned cars, his Singer Porsches. Yeah, because that way you could get an old style long hood, which I like, something from the 70s, but it would have all new stuff and done the exact way I want, with a kick-ass 4-liter motor or something like that. So,
well, see, you're a serious car guy, so you know that stuff. All right.
That's kind of like a Cobra, it's a pretty lightweight car with a big motor. I mean, the original Porsches back then had great motors, but you put the kind of motors that he's putting in that either Ed Pink builds or McLaren or whatever it might be. I mean, those cars got to be pretty darn cool.
All right. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thanks for throwing it back at me here.
I'm an interviewer.
I know.
This is so odd for me. Mark, this is so odd for me right now to be answering the questions, not asking them.
Well, that's okay. Sometimes it's good to have the mic twisted on you a little bit. You can learn a few things. So I've had the same thing done to me. Well, Rob, you've taken me on an awesome ride around the track today. I knew this would be fast and furious in a way. I've really enjoyed your stories. I want to thank you for sharing your journey. Could you offer us a little parting piece of wisdom or guidance before you rip off down the track in that Shelby Cobra?
I think you and I talked about it, and anybody I talk to, especially when I talk to young people, especially at the kart track, right? Because I'm dealing with kids between 8 and 16, 17 years of age. Of course, there's lots of older karters, but for the young people, we talked about it. Find something that you love to do and figure out a way to make it your life. You don't need to make $120,000 if you hate it. Make $80,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $40,000 if you're happy. Do something you love. That's the way to live life.
Yeah, life's too darn short. And what's the best way for our listeners to follow along with you and all the cool things you're doing?
Well, the website is ekartingnews.com. You mentioned that. I'm at Rob Howden on both Facebook and Twitter. It's at Rob Howden Racing on Instagram. I'm pretty aggressive on all three of the platforms. And again, IndyCar Radio Network for all the stuff we do with the NTT IndyCar series, the Indianapolis 500, and then with everything I do with the Road to Indy, which is fantastic. If you follow Road to Indy TV, they actually have an app for the Road to Indy TV. You can get all of our broadcasts because we stream live all the races for the USF 2000 program, the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship,
nice.
The Indy Pro 2000 Championship presented by Cooper Tires, and then Indy Lights as well. All that streaming, it's amazing stuff. And we hope that you tune in, because what I say about karting and the Road to Indy, if you're an IndyCar fan, this is the minor leagues. This is when you get to get really connected with the future stars of IndyCar when they're coming up the ranks.
Very cool. And a nice shout out there to our friends at Cooper Tires. Great folks there. Love Cooper Tires as well. Well, listeners, you can find everything that Rob has shared again today here on his Cars Yeah show notes page. Just go to the website, type in Rob, and his page will pop right up. Rob, thanks for being so generous today with your time and expertise, and for sharing your experiences with me and the Cars Yeah listeners. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road.
Mark, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Take care.
This has been fun. You take care of your cars, but who takes care of your investments? Tune-ups aren't just for engines. Updating your financial plan is important too. Your GPS may take you from A to B, but it won't help you on the road to financial freedom. For that, you need a good co-pilot and a very trusted advisor. Chris Kimball, CFP, is just the man for the job. He'll guide you down that road without driving you crazy. For over 25 years, Chris has helped people just like you and me with their financial planning and investments. With a master's degree in financial services, he is eminently qualified. And he's a car guy, too. Learn more at chrisvkimball.com or call 866-ON-A-PLAN. Securities through Money Concepts Capital Corp. Member FINRA SIPC. CK Financial Services is not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.